From desolate ice scapes to forgotten air bases, these are abandoned places and machines around the world. Number 11. USS Plainview, Washington State. The USS Plainview, built in 1964, was a giant engineering accomplishment. In fact, it was the world's largest hydrofoil. Instead of trying to explain what a hydrofoil is, focus your attention on this picture. As the boat picked up speed, the hull lifted up from the water surface, allowing it to travel much faster and avoid detection from submarines. It cost $21 million to make, which is about $140 million today. Pricey, don't you think? The ship itself was an experiment. They used it to determine the efficiency of hydrofoils, especially against submarines. By 1978, with a total travel of only 268 hours, the USS Plainview was no longer needed. She was quickly decommissioned and sold for scrap in the same year. Just doing some quick maths, in today's money, the production cost per hour of use for the ship was $550,000 per hour. General Metals, now called Schnitzer Metals, took their sweet time scrapping the ship. In fact, the process started in 2004, some 26 years later. The ship has been drifting on private property near Astoria, Oregon for the past decades. It's a pretty cool look, except for the pollutants from the hull possibly destroying the local environment. Number 10. Abandoned Cafe, Georgia. I'm not going to attempt and explain the local political and social problems in the country of Georgia, but the gist of it is, after the fall of the Soviet Union, tons of money was poured into non-sustainable projects. Some money was stolen, some money went into building hotels, cafes, and entertainment buildings. This cafe is one of those buildings. Situated on a beach in Anaclea, Georgia, it sits alone. Looking at it from the sky, you can barely make out how impressive the design of this structure really is. If anyone from this region is watching, please let me know some interesting details about the place. I will feature you in an upcoming video. Number 9. Patten Tanks Field, Germany. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Here we have a random field in Germany, littered with what looked to be M47 Patton tanks. Built during the 1950s, the tanks have seen their fair share of use, but not by the US military. It was mostly used by NATO and SEATO. SEATO was a failed attempt to create a Southeast Asia treaty organization to ward off communist expansion into the area, so that's a can of worms I'm not opening. Anyway, back to this random field in Germany. From the looks of it, the tanks are being used for nothing more than target practice, so don't go running around there. Number 8. Pyramiden, Norway. Pyramiden. Most of you are probably familiar with this long abandoned settlement in Norway. It was founded by Sweden in 1910, but by 1927, the Soviets were operating the mines. So, just to get some perspective, this is the Svalbard archipelago. This is Pyramiden, population 0. This is the capital of Svalbard, population 2,368. And this is Barentsburg, another Russian mining settlement, population 470, making it the second largest settlement on Svalbard. Can you imagine living in such a desolate area? Pyramiden once had over 1,000 inhabitants, with a working library, community center, and even a cantina. For the most part, all the workers came from Donbass in Ukraine. The last coal extracted from the mine was on March 31st, 1998. By October 10th, everyone had packed up and left the town. Between 1998 and 2007, Pyramiden was, by all statistics, a ghost town. Nothing was touched, nothing was disturbed, and no one had the need or want to visit it. Nowadays, the settlement has definitely grown in popularity, and it gets quite a few visitors every year. The land is still owned by the Russian company Arktikogol, so it's not a free-for-all. You can get in trouble for entering buildings without permission. Number 7. Arctic AN-12, Russia. This exceptional plane crash happened on April 11, 2003. Luckily, all 14 passengers on board made it out alive, probably because the cargo plane crash-landed in a controlled manner, some 5 miles away from its final destination, located here, the North Pole 32 station. The place is called Severnaya Zemlya, meaning northern land. No joke, this place is really far north. The Bureau of Aircraft Accidents Archives lists this as the only plane crash in the region, and now you know there's a website for that. The Antonov 12 airplane was badly damaged and due to its geographic location was left abandoned. Not like anyone is going to go rummaging for spare parts, right? Number 6 is Luchino Russian Polar Station, Russia. Sticking around the northern parts of Russia leads us to Luchino, a Russian polar station located on the island of Komsomolets. I can't really find a lot of information about this specific station, but same as the AN-12, it looks like everything was left as is. You can see many oil barrels, trucks, and random buildings scattered around the frozen landscape. In general, polar stations are used for research and exploring the local, brutal environment. Historically, very few polar stations were permanent, and some of them were built over drifting ice, making them even harder to sustain. Number 5. Seattle Gasworks, Washington State. What you're looking at is the sole remaining coal gasification plant in the United States. Gasification is the process of turning fossil fuels into gases like hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide. The whole concept is considered to be a source of renewable energy, but it has become quite outdated. The Seattle Gasworks plant operated from 1906 to 1956. In 1962, the land was purchased by the city of Seattle and turned into a community park, which took about 8 years. Not gonna lie, the location seems pretty awesome from above. The more I read about it, the more it seems this place shouldn't be considered abandoned. Some of the old structures have been turned into attractions for kids, and most are somewhat accessible by the general public. What do you think? Is this an abandoned place, or simply a repurposed location? Number 4. Abandoned plane, Bali. Remember this plane from a long time ago?
It's not easy to just transport a 737 all willy-nilly like, but somehow, this massive aircraft ended up in the town of Kuta, Indonesia. Looking at it from top down, you can see there are many houses surrounding it. How the hell did this plane get here?
Well, I believe there might be an update here. This looks like the exact same plane, just a little cleaned up, especially the surrounding area. It may be that the new owners of the land finally had the resources to start work on making it an actual tourist attraction. Number 3. Miller Field Air Force Base, New York State. Located on Staten Island, Miller Field was built between 1919 and 1921. It was named after Captain James Eli Miller, commanding officer of the 95th Aero Squadron in the Air Service of the American Expeditionary Force, and the first United States aviator to be killed in action while serving with an American military aviation unit. In 1921, Miller Field was the only coastal defense air station in the eastern United States, making it a pretty big deal. Miller Field was at one point the only airfield in New York to utilize grass runways too. Between 1921 and 1969, the base was used as a training ground and a storage facility for planes, since it had 4 active hangars. In 1969, the base was closed down and the surrounding area became a public park. Number 2. The SS Kyle, Canada. The SS Kyle, a 220-foot steam ship, has been rusting near the town of Harbor Grace since 1967. The ship had a long history, including infantry transport during World War II. Since the ship ran ashore, it has had multiple owners that have failed to bring her back to life. At one point, the ship was going to be a museum, but due to financial implications, nothing happened. The ship has definitely seen better days, but as you can judge from these pictures, it's not a total disaster. As it turns out, the local government repainted the ship in 1997. Number 1. Bolivia Train Graveyard, Bolivia. Located near the incredible, jaw-dropping, out-of-this-world Bolivian salt flats, this train graveyard doesn't get many visitors. When you have this next door, why even bother with some rusted trains? Well, because they're pretty cool, that's why. These are remnants of the bustling railways of Christmas past. In the 19th century, the area was used by mining companies from England. As they connected the local mines to the seaports of Chile, more and more trains were needed. Nowadays, the remains of these relics of the past can be seen here, the Great Bolivian Train Graveyard. It has a certain ring to it, don't you think? Which one of these places was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below.
Check out the featured comment below, subscribe for more World Unearthed, and I'll see you in the next video.